Hey guys, and welcome to Should You Buy It, where all we do is talk a little bit about the game and tell you whether or not we think it's worth the cost.
But not in our wildest dreams did we imagine what we would find.
In this episode, we'll be playing The Wandering Village, a colony sim where you will not only have to keep your city and its people alive, but also the creature it's built on.
Now, the first question that we always cover in these videos is what stage of development is the game in? And in this case, The Wandering Village is currently in early access and available on PC for $25.
So what exactly is the game? Well, The Wandering Village is a game that takes place on the back of a large creature known as an Onbu. Onbu are creatures that are so large that they can carry entire villages filled with hundreds of people on them. Their size is not only useful for building either, as the Onbu is able to transport the village around the world, be harvested for special resources, and even commanded to go in a certain direction.
While the primary city builder elements of this game are for the most part pretty standard, they do spice things up with the Onbu. You see, since what you're building on is alive, that means you'll be able to harvest the things it grows and produces. Everything from the spike growths on its back to the blood of the Onbu itself, or even its own poop, can be harvested and used. For an example, you can harvest the Onbu's gallbladder for a liquid that is absolutely great at killing off infected plants.
You see, infected plant life is something that will occasionally appear on the back of your Onbu. This is because as you travel through the world like fleas on a dog, occasionally your Onbu will wander into infected areas, such as an infected forest. This will then cause infected plant life and poisonous air to spawn, which makes both your village and your Onbu sick. If this isn't dealt with in a timely manner, then you will quickly find that either your village population or your Onbu are dying off.
There are many ways for you to actually die though. This means simply keeping your Onbu and your own village from getting sick will not be enough. They both will need to be fed on a regular basis, and environments can cause destruction to your town or even droughts where you'll be desperate for water. The main idea is that your Onbu is a part of your village just as much as your villagers are, for one cannot survive without the other.
Your Onbu, however, is much like a little puppy dog in the sense that it won't listen to you if you don't treat it right. This means it will choose its own paths to take, its own places to sleep, even if it's in the middle of an infected forest, and to ignore any commands that you give it. To make your Onbu trust you, you will need to show it that you're here to help by feeding it, healing it, and even giving it those nice pets from time to time. This, however, isn't as simple as it sounds, as to harvest certain resources, you may have to hurt your Onbu.
A prime example of this is harvesting Onbu blood, which is vital for Onbu potion making. You see, in order to get that blood, you must first drill into a very specific spot on the Onbu's back. Then, every time the Onbu's heart beats, you will get some blood at the cost of the Onbu's health pool. Do this too much without healing your Onbu, and it will get upset and start to ignore your commands. The same rules apply for things such as mining the Onbu spikes, creating an Onbu liquid feeder, and building certain structures. This can of course mean that by not being able to give it a command at the right time, that your game may very quickly end if the Onbu decides to sleep in a not so great place.
Now before we move into the pros and cons, we would like to mention that if you hit the join button just below this video, you can get some cool perks for less than the price of a cheeseburger at your favorite fast food restaurant. In all seriousness though, any support makes a huge difference in the time and quality that we're able to put in each of our videos, and once again, to do this, just check out the join button down below. With that being said, first up for the pros is the art style. The Wandering Village brings such a charming art style to the table that it almost gives me a retro vibe. Watching your little villagers running around like 2D Paper Mario cutouts in a 3D world always felt warming and interesting to look at. And finally for the pros, it's just the overall concept of the game. You see, the whole concept of the Wandering Village is something that we really haven't seen much, if any of, before. The idea that your village is constantly moving throughout the world and you have to keep the ground that you live on alive, along with your own people, is just such a cool and unique idea.
Now for the cons. The first con I have is that the content is overall just kind of lacking, and the future doesn't really look like it's giving the game that much of a big chance to add new content as well. Now, what I mean by all of this is that if you actually play the game, you'll be able to unlock everything pretty quickly, you'll get a good taste of what the game has to offer, and once you get to that end game point, there's really not much of a reason for you to replay unless you just want to play the game again with things just having a higher difficulty. And by higher difficulty, all I mean is things like your Onbu takes damage faster, or your villagers die faster, or they get hungry faster. It's just numbers being changed. There's no new mechanic or anything like that. Following that is the fact that the replay value with this game is pretty darn low. And again, this is just kind of going back off of what I just talked about because of the lack of content, because there's no like missions you could do or random encounters that are dramatically different each time you play or new things on harder difficulties that will pop up. The game doesn't really give you a lot of reason to play it again unless you just want to see if you can micromanage your village slightly better on a higher difficulty in order to survive the slightly higher starvation rates and the slightly higher damage you're on will take. Finally, for the cons is the fact that Onbu care seems to be a bit too easy and simplified. Things like cleaning parasites on its legs, giving more path options for you to choose from, and encountering or fighting maybe even another Onbu village would all improve the gameplay experience when it comes to dealing with your Onbu. At the moment, there's really only a few ways you interact with your Onbu, and those come in the form of things like a command to walk or run, or feed it with a trebuchet that just kind of launches food at it and makes it slightly happier, or even really just curing it. And that may seem like a lot, but they're really not that interactive. I think it would be much more interesting to add some of these other mechanics I just talked about, especially to me, the idea of one such as having a pirate ship battle in the form of two Onbu villages fighting on each other's backs, trying to take control of the other, or maybe taming a new Onbu that's better later on. I don't know, there's just a ton of ideas they could do here, and it really feels like the devs just missed out on a huge opportunity. And just to point this out again, if you look at their planned future content, there is no suggestion that many of these things will be added in any way, shape, or form. Sure, they could, we don't know, it's early access, but at this point, this is definitely a big problem in my eyes.
So now it's time for the rating for the game, and when we rate games, we want to get 1 hour of enjoyment out of every $1 that the game costs. So for this game in particular, in The Wandering Village, we would want to get roughly 25 hours of enjoyment out of the $25 cost of the game. And after putting several played hours into this game, we give it 5 out of 10 potatoes.
Now, before you all go to the comment section and tell us that we are wrong and that The Wandering Village is better than we claim it is, let me just explain why we gave it the score that we did. You see, our goal is to provide every single viewer with an honest review based on what we think the average gamer would enjoy. We also strongly believe that you should receive 1 hour of enjoyment per $1 that you spend on games. While yes, The Wandering Village does have a very charming art style, a relaxing feel to it, and a very unique idea, it still doesn't take very long to see all the game has to offer. The replayability is also strongly limited on top of that and doesn't really change that much aside from things just being more punishing and numbers being increased. To put this in context for you, we were able to unlock every research and build every building within the Wandering Village game in just under 5 hours. We also understand that there are planned updates for the game, but after looking at the devs' comments and roadmap, we do not believe that what they plan to implement into the game would be enough to warrant more than a 1 or 2 point increase to the overall rating we've already given it. Therefore, due to all the things that we've recently spoken about, we feel that the Wandering Village is currently a coin toss as to whether or not it's worth the cost.
Now before you guys go, thank you so much for watching, and if you did enjoy the video, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more survival game content and reviews. We just want to quickly shout out our Platinum and Above members Jonathan S., Caustic FPV, and Jim Phillips, and if you too would like to help support the channel for less than $1, which is less than the price of a cheeseburger these days, you can hit the join button down below to check out our membership program. Otherwise, thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you next time.